When you think about it, we all get two inheritances in life. The first one is biological, right? It's passed down through our DNA. But the second one is cultural. It's this whole collection of stories and ideas that get passed down through generations. Today, we're going to unpack both of them to really try and understand what our genes mean for us and for our future. So, what's being described here? Our genes. That's how the physician and author Siddhartha Mukherjee put it. And he's spot on. The whole idea of the gene has this incredible power to explain who we are. But man, it also comes with a really fraught history of dangerous misuse. So the stakes for getting this right, they are incredibly high. And to really get our heads around genetics, we have to look at these two sides of the same coin. On one side, you've got the molecule itself, DNA. It's literally our biological instruction book. But on the other side, you've got the myth, these powerful and often really flawed stories that our culture tells us about what that instruction book is actually saying. So let's start right there by exploring our two inheritances. We are all shaped by this dual legacy, the biological code that's humming away inside ourselves and the cultural stories that wrap all around it. If we want to understand ourselves, we have to understand both. And honestly, this conversation couldn't be more urgent. We are living through what some people are calling the DNA revolution. I mean, think about this. It took 13 years and almost 3 billion dollars to sequence the very first human genome. Today, you can get it done in less than 24 hours for just a few $100. That changes everything. So one of the key things to come out of this revolution is something called a polygenic score. The easiest way to think of it is as a tool. It reads thousands of little variations in your DNA to calculate probabilities, and that's the key word, probabilities, not certainties, about your future, for everything from your risk for heart disease to how far you might go in school. And the power of these scores has just skyrocketed. Seriously, back in 2004, trying to use DNA to predict something like how much education someone would get was basically science fiction. By 2013, it was just starting to become possible. But today, the prediction you can get from DNA is as strong as knowing a major social factor, like a child's family income. It's a huge leap. Okay, but this is the crucial point, and we really have to nail this down. These scores are not crystal balls. They offer probabilities, not prophecies. There are plenty of people with low polygenic scores for education who go on to get degrees, and on the flip side, plenty of people with high scores who don't. Life is always, always more complicated than a single number.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question. If these scores are so powerful, but they're not deterministic, what are they actually measuring? Is it just pure biology? Or is our social world somehow baked right into the results? Well, to answer that, we've got to bust some pretty major myths.
So let's start with the biggest one of them all, the destiny myth. This is that old and really flawed idea of genetic determinism. The belief that our DNA is some kind of fixed, unchangeable script for our lives. But as it turns out, science tells a much, much more interesting story. To see why, let's go back in time to a classic experiment. In the 1960s, a couple of researchers, Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson, went into an elementary school. And they told the teachers that based on a fancy new test, certain students in their classrooms were bloomers. These were kids who were basically genetically gifted and just poised for huge academic growth.
But here's the twist. There was no special test. The bloomers were picked completely at random. But it didn't matter. The teachers' belief in their potential actually changed how they taught them. And a year later, those randomly chosen kids had learned significantly more than their peers. An idea, a myth, had literally changed their reality.
Now, that experiment raises a really fascinating question, right? If a simple belief can have such a powerful effect on someone, how can scientists ever hope to figure out the pure biological effects of DNA itself, separate from all the social stuff that's happening all around us? Well, scientists have a pretty clever way of thinking about this. It's like a parallel universe thought experiment. To find the true effect of something, you just imagine our world right next to a parallel one where only that single thing is different. The difference in outcome between you and your cosmic twin, that's the causal effect. And this thought experiment just illustrates the point so brilliantly. When we apply this idea to DNA, we realize its effects are never in a vacuum. They are always, always mediated by the environment. So to measure the effect of a gene, you have to imagine the social world staying constant, which means our social world gets baked into every single genetic finding.
Let's look at a powerful real-world example. These are Millie and Marcia Biggs. They're fraternal twins. Because of the random shuffle of their parents' DNA, one has lighter skin and the other has darker skin. Now, any difference in their lives that comes from that, say because of racism or colorism, is technically an effect of DNA. But it's an effect that could only exist in a society that attaches meaning and value to skin color in the first place.
And that leads us directly into the second huge myth we have to tackle, the false and frankly deeply harmful idea that our DNA sorts all of humanity into these neat, distinct biological races. I mean, the human cost of this myth is just staggering. In 1958, police burst into the bedroom of Mildred and Richard Loving. Their crime wasn't theft, it wasn't violence. It was that Richard was considered white, Mildred was considered black, and they had dared to get married in the state of Virginia. And the judge's ruling just laid the myth bare for all to see. He claimed that God created separate races on separate continents, and that for them to mix went against a natural, biological, and even divine order. This is the race myth in its rawest, most ugly form. But here is the beautiful scientific reality that just smashes that myth to pieces. We don't have separate trees. All of humanity, every single person who has ever lived, belongs to one single, deeply interconnected family tree. We are all one species. So it is absolutely vital that we can tell the difference between two very different concepts. Race is a social construct. It's a set of labels and categories that societies create and then impose on people. It changes over time. It's different in different cultures. Ancestry, on the other hand, is a biological fact. It's your own specific, unique path through that one great family tree we all share. Let's just put it as plainly as possible. Race isn't a property of your DNA. Race is a social action. It's what society does to you, how it treats you, based on how it perceives your physical appearance and your ancestry. So understanding and busting these myths, the destiny myth, the race myth, it is absolutely essential as we try to navigate our new genomic future. Because these tools, they're becoming more powerful and a lot more common every single day. So at the end of the day, what is the crucial takeaway from all of this? It's that our DNA is not some simple blueprint that dictates our fate. It's a really complex set of biological potentials, and its meaning and its impact are constantly being shaped, interpreted, and mediated by the world that we all live in. And that leaves us with one final and I think really powerful question. This DNA revolution is giving us an unprecedented ability to read our own biological source code. But knowing what we now know about the power of our social world, the real question is this: how will we choose to write the next chapter of our human story?